you. Thank you. Wow, that was like watching home movies. I never expected anyone to actually read that. But you defy all my expectations all the time, especially you, my good friend Pastor Hagee, Mrs. Hagee, and all of you. My son's name is Avner. He is Israel's national Bible champion, and he came number 2, second deputy in the international Bible contest. It's a quiz. It's very hard. And he, at the age of 15, did this. I have to tell you that he didn't make the world champion because of the Prime Minister's question. I asked it. I do want to say that I do read the Bible with him. We read it every Saturday, actually. Every Shabbat, after lunch, we sit down and we read. We read Exodus now, and then you have Haftarah. How do you say that? Am I correct? Absolutely. I know it. So I draw, like you, enormous reservoirs of strength from the Torah, from the Bible. This is the well from which we drink. This is the stone on which we stand. Those eternal and undivided capital, Jerusalem. And I want to thank all of you for standing up for the one and only Jewish state. Now, the unbelievable number. Christians United for Israel now number 1 million supporters. And I know this is only the beginning relationship between Christians and Jews. This relationship was focused on our differences and a tortured past. But today, Jews and Christians are focusing on the common future that we have and the common values that we share. Now, what are these values? They're values that spring from our common heritage, from the revolutionary ideas that were first formulated in this land millennia ago. One of these ideas that we read about is from the book of Samuel, actually from the second book of Samuel. And I want to tell you about it. Prime Minister's question. There was a king in this city. You know his name? King David. Now, he was a great king, but he was not without sin. One day he was looking out from his terrace in the old city of Jerusalem, David's city, and he sees Bathsheba, and he's asked to bring her to him. He says, bring her husband. Her husband is the Uriah. So David gives an order, the military commander, to put Uriah on the front lines. And Uriah dies in battle. And David marries Bathsheba. End of story, right? Because then Nathan, the prophet, comes to David and he says, now, what would you do to the rich man who takes from the poor man? If he took away that one possession from the poor man, well, I'd punish him. And Nathan says to this all-powerful king, you are that man. Now that's a revolutionary statement in human affairs. That's an impossible statement 3,000 years ago, when the world was ruled by all-powerful empires with all-powerful kings. Who could possibly say that in antiquity and live? Well, Nathan said it to the king, and this was inscribed in our Bible. This is such a revolutionary piece. Power is not all-encompassing. All men are equal under God, with inalienable rights. It's a revolutionary Jewish concept. And I think that this message took time to resonate throughout the ages, that power is not absolute and that no one is above the law. And those values, like many others, are rooted in the Bible. And they were passed from one generation to another of Jews. They were spread far and wide by Christians. They eventually helped spark a new era of freedom and progress. An Englishman called Isaac Newton, he read the Bible in Hebrew, and he decided to recommend this book to a friend of his. His friend was John Locke, the famous philosopher of religious tolerance, the famous writer of religious tolerance. And Locke was influenced by these same ideas that shaped our civilization. So we are all drinking from that same well. We're all heirs to a great civilization, a civilization that is the source, the wellspring of the values which we so deeply cherish. And those values ensure that Israel's minorities, including over 1 million citizens who are Arabs, always have full civil rights, values that ensure that Israel's government will never tolerate discrimination against women, and values that assure that Israel's Christian population will always be free to practice their faith. That's the only place in the Middle East where Christians are fully free to practice their faith. They don't have to fear, they don't have to flee. At a time when Christians are under siege in so many places, in so many lands in the Middle East, I'm proud that in Israel, Christians are free to practice their faith. And these shared values set Israel apart from regimes like Syria that butcher their own people mercilessly, and from terror organizations like Hamas and Islamic Jihad and Hezbollah that indiscriminately fire rockets on civilians and hide behind civilians, and from countries like Iran, whose leaders foment terrorism and violence around the globe and call for our destruction. I think I don't have to explain to you. You get the main point, that our enemies don't hate us for what we do, they hate us for what we are. Now, do you want the good news or the bad news? What do you want first? The bad news, you're like me. Well, the bad news for the Jewish people can be summed up in 2 words. Numbers count. Big populations have large economies. They have the resources to field large armies. Military power produces political and economic power, which in turn produces more military power. That's bad news for the Jewish people because our numbers aren't that big. We're a tiny nation in numbers. So that's the bad news. You want the good news? I'm sure you want the good news. The Jewish people have always defied the laws of history. Our improbable odyssey through time, a nearly 4,000-year journey marked by indescribable tragedy and sublime triumph, Durant hints that the young state of Israel were powered by deep wellsprings of faith and culture, may continue to defy the laws of history. And we have. We've defended ourselves time after time against much larger enemies. Our innovations have made Israel a technological powerhouse. Our Nobel Prize winners have propelled humanity forward. By the way, Israel has more Nobel Prize winners per capita than any other country in the world. And the towering genius and spirit of our peoples finds expressions in every field, in science, in medicine, in technology, in industry, in art, in culture. And here's more good news. The Jewish people are not alone. We're not alone because we have the support of and we're not alone because we're uniquely blessed by the support of tens of millions, and even more across the United States and countless other countries across the world. So I want to thank you, Christians United for Israel. I want to thank you for standing up for Israel. I want to thank you for standing up and being counted. May God bless you all. Thank you.